Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session of English Wednesdays. Thank you, everyone. I can see in the chat that you are already here. And I am Romina from Macmillan Education. And first of all, I would like to thank Mondadori for this fantastic opportunity. And just to remind you that you're here today to listen to my colleague Teresa Doğuelli, who will talk about here it is. Hi, hello, Teresa. Welcome.
Hi.
And she'll talk about what's old, what's new, and what's gone out with the bathwater. Now, without further ado, I will pass it over to Teresa. And thanks, Teresa, again.
Thank you, Romina. So, if I'm going to ask all of you to join in sometimes with some of these activities in the comments box. So I hope you have a keyboard close by. I'm Teresa Doğuelli. I'm based in Turkey as a teacher trainer. I've been working now as a teacher trainer for a long time, but still alive and well, and so happy to be with you. Thank you, Montadori, and thank you, Macmillan, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you all for coming. Okay, now, so that's the title, and what is this about bathwater, you may be asking. What's the connection between English language teaching and bathwater? Well, it comes from an idiom which we use in English, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And you'll be able to see on this screen, to throw the baby out with the bathwater is an idiom which means to lose something important while trying to get rid of unwanted things. It comes from the Middle Ages, as you'll see in that picture on the left. In the Middle Ages, people only had a bath about once a year, and the bathtub would be filled with water, and of course, according to the rules of seniority, the father would be the first to have the bath. When the father had finished, the male of the family, the mother would then have her bath, they being the most senior, then the oldest brother or sister, and then down the line, right down to the baby. And the baby was the very last one to have a bath. And you can imagine the color of the water by the time it was time for the baby to have his bath. Very often it was quite black. And so the danger was that the baby might slip into the water, and the person throwing the water out might not see the baby and might throw the baby out with the bathwater. So we still use this idiom to mean when you throw something out, or when you reject something, be careful not to also lose something important, which is amongst all this unwanted stuff. And this is what I want to look at. So we're going to look at methods and approaches in English language teaching. Obviously, those of you who are a little bit older, have gone through many changes. If any of you are as old as me, you've gone through hundreds of changes in methods, in approaches, in beliefs about English language teaching. And those of you who are just younger teachers who have just started, it might be interesting as well for you to just remember things that you were told at university, and then have a chance now to review what's still good, what's maybe not so good, what's new, what's old, and that's what we're going to do today. Sorry, I'm moving my mouse around there. That's a habit. We seem to have this muscle memory, don't we? We hold on to our mouse just like we hold on to our phones in one hand and our hand is stuck to the mouse on the other. Very technological people we've become these days. Okay, so my talk today will be in three parts. We're going to start with a very short quiz, just to see what you remember, and to ask the question, do methods and approaches in English language teaching have sell-by dates, just like products in the supermarket, which says sell by 5th of November 2020? Do they become rotten and bad and useless after a certain date or not? So we're going to do a very, very short quiz in part one. Then in part two of my talk, I'm going to dictate a number of all the many different techniques and methods and approaches that have come and gone, and maybe come back again. So we're going to give you a chance to think what's old for you, what's new for you. And then in the last part of my talk today, we're going to look at how many activities nowadays are a revolution, are new, or are they actually evolution? Maybe they're just old methods, but they have been adapted and maybe have different clothes on, but are actually something which has been around for a long time. So without any further ado, let's move to this is just a warmer now. This is not the quiz per self, but it's just a little warmer to the first part of my talk. Do methods and approaches have sell-by dates? I'm going to show you a page or two now from an English language teaching course book, and I'm going to ask you if you can guess the date of this particular method and then write it in the chat box. So there we are. It's, as you can see, it's a little dialogue between Barbara and Peter. Barbara says, "Peter, where laid you your nightcap?" And Peter says, "I left it upon the bed." And Barbara says, "Are you ready?" And Peter says, "How should I be ready? You brought me a smock instead of my shirt." And Barbara says, "I forgot myself. Hold, here is your shirt." And Peter says, "Now you are a good wench. Why do you not put on your shoes? You go always slap-shod." "My shoes been out." "Better is to have a bad excuse than not at all." "Now we be ready. Give us our breakfast that we may go to school." "Did you say your prayers?" "Not yet." "It is not well done. Pray God, then you shall have your breakfast." So this was a dialogue from an English language course book, but from which year? Can you now type into the chat box the year that you think this came out? Now, I can see 1600, 1500, 1980s, 1890, no idea. A wonderful selection there. So from the 16th century to the 20th century, and also some people honestly saying no idea. Great. I've got a lot of 1800, 1900, 1600. Okay. 2000. Okay, interesting. So are you ready? I'm going to now reveal on the next slide the year that this text came out. Bam! 1586. So those of you who wrote 1500, you were very, very close. Those of you who wrote 1600, also very, very close. This was, in fact, the very first English language text. And it's interesting that a lot of you wrote 2018 or 1990, because it's a dialogue, isn't it? And we still have dialogue. So right from the 16th century to the present day, we're still using dialogues. This was as I said, the very, very first it was a new approach to teaching English. It was created by monks in England. There was a huge a wave of immigrants who were running away. They were Huguenot refugees who were being persecuted in their country, so they ran away to England, and there were all these Huguenots running around who couldn't speak English, and I believe it was the king who said, let the monks, because they were the literate ones, let the monks create a method to teach these awful people English, so that they can communicate with us and so that they can communicate in daily speech. And so the monks sat down and prepared texts like this one, dialogues like this one, that they could learn so that they could communicate with people around them on a day-to-day basis. So that's just the beginning. So even today, we're still using this method, which started such a long time ago. So that certainly does not have a sell-by date. This one has been going for a long time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start our quiz now. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I'm going to ask you 1 question, give you time to write your answer. It's going to be multiple choice, so you can write down your answer in the chat box again, like we did just now. And then I'll look at the answer for the first one, then I'll show you the second one, then the answer, then the third one, then the answer. So if you're ready, here is the first question of the quiz proper. This particular method or approach was a reaction, a revolution, a reform in its time. It was designed for younger school learners and group teaching in classrooms to focus on language in context, especially on extracts taken from authentic or graded, often literary texts. Learners were meant with detailed, accurate immersion in the language and autonomous use of dictionaries to get a deep feel for the language and its culture, and to develop effective skills of reading and writing. So, fingers on your keyboards, was it A, you can just write A, B, C, or D. Was it the communicative approach? Was it total immersion? Was it the grammar translation method? Or was it the lexical approach? A, B, C, or D? Let's see what you think. Okay, so I can see a lot of A's. Someone's undecided. I can see a few B's. I can see a C there. Some A's, some B's. A D there. Okay. So, if you're ready, we will have a look at who's right, who's wrong. Ding, ding, ding. And bam! Surprise, surprise. It was, in fact, unbelievable but true, the grammar translation method, because, again, as you can see, this was in the 18th century. And until that time, a lot of people had only been studying Greek and Latin, and they were often the scholars, the rich, the privileged. And so it was decided by the current king that all people should be able to learn languages, and they thought that it would be great to start with younger learners in schools. This was the first time ever in 1793. And as you can see, how much the grammar translation method changed in time, but it was the teachers using it who changed it. The original method, you can see from the description how differently it was originally planned to be. And those of you who wrote A, B, or C, or D may be forgiven, because this was how it was originally conceived, but it was mangled along the way. Okay, so we're going on now to question 2. So question 2, which equally revolutionary method or approach was based primarily on getting the students to speak and prohibited the use of the mother tongue? Was it A, the natural approach? Was it B, the direct method? Was it C, the communicative approach? Or was it D, total physical response? Once again, fingers on the keyboard and type in your answer. As you can see, the mother tongue was forbidden. Students were not allowed to speak their own mother tongue in the classroom, something which we still have today in some classes. Children are not allowed by their teachers to speak their mother tongue. So which one was the first to bring in this particular idea? So I can see A's and B's, I can see C's, A's, B's, C's, B's. Interesting. Okay. Uh-huh. Again, a whole selection. I can see a lot of C's, I can see quite a few B's, and a few A's, and 1 or 2 D's. And the answer is the direct method. This one first came out, as you can see, in 1880, and then later it made a big comeback in 1960, particularly in training members of the army, soldiers, to speak when they were in another country. And as they were, I think they were training up a few spies as well. So the idea was, do not speak the mother tongue. The natural approach, Stephen Krashen, certainly doesn't forbid children to use their mother tongue. They can if they want to help them with the language. The communicative approach doesn't have anything about not speaking the mother tongue. And total physical response, those of you who use it with your younger learners, you'll know that a lot of this is about actions, following instructions. So there's less speaking and more reacting. So actions, physical actions to songs. So nothing to do with speaking the mother tongue. So it was the direct method which explicitly said, do not use the mother tongue. And that has still remained with some of us today, even though we're not using the direct method. I believe the direct method is still used by certain schools like Berlitz, the School of Languages. I taught at Berlitz too, and yes, we did not allow our students to speak their own mother tongue at all. But apart from that, there's nothing like that around. Okay, so we're going on now to the third question. We're going to question 3. Which one of these is an example of organic, brain-based, whole child or whole person learning? Okay, you've got A, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, B, Reggio Emilia, familiar name there, C, Steiner Waldorf, or D, Montessori, another familiar name for people in Italy. So I'm looking now in the chat box. I can see D's, a lot of D's and C's. those of you who are familiar with Steiner Waldorf. Ovvio. What's ovvio? Pio mori. I can see a few C's. No A's at the moment. A lot of D's, a lot of C's. Okay. And a bit of a trick question, because the answer is all of them. So you're all right. Both, obviously, Montessori, which probably you're all very familiar with, Reggio Emilia, less heard of, but also which also originated in Italy, is another example. The Steiner Waldorf, the cigarette company that created its own school method of learning for children, and neuro-linguistic programming, which started in 1974. All of those, all 20th century, and all examples of organic, brain-based, whole child and whole person learning. So there we go. So you can see only this particular section are newer, in that these are all 20th century. But as you saw here, some of us are still using, well, many of us are using eclectic methods now. We're probably using total physical response and communicative approach, and maybe some direct method and some natural approach. If I go back, no, I can't go back any further, but the grammar translation, quite a few of us may still be using different methods. And the answer is, I don't think any of them have sell-by dates. We can still use a lot of things. There's still a lot of good around. But the difference today is that it's eclectic, it's a mixture. So moving to part two, I'm going to run through various methods and approaches which have come and gone in some cases, or have come and stayed. And what we're going to do, I'm going to, on the next slide, I'm going to, on the next two slides, I'm going to run through this whole stream of different methods and approaches which we have had in the last years, centuries. And Luca is going to put up a link for you in the chat box, a link to Word Garden. So I don't want you to write your answers in the chat box. What are you going to write, you may say? You're going to write of the methods and approaches which I show you. I'd like you to share which ones are new for you. And when I say new, I mean, maybe you, A, have never heard of it, or B, you've heard of it, but you've never used it. You haven't had the chance, or you didn't want to risk it, or maybe somebody didn't let you use it. So new, I just want you to focus on what is new for you, i.e. you've never heard of it, or you've never used it, or you haven't used it much. So I want you to share that, and I want you to share it on Word Garden. And as soon as I turn to the next slide with all these methods and approaches on, Luca is going to put the link to Word Garden. And if you go into that link, you can write up any of the methods that I show you now into Word Garden, and then we'll have a look and see what is fairly new for most of us. Okay, so if you're ready, Luca, and if you're ready, teachers attending, we're going to start. I'll dictate these different methods, and you're writing your answers via the link which Luca is going to share in the chat box. So have you got the link? Hopefully Luca has put the link up there for you. And okay, so I'm going to start reading through these. So the first one is drills, dictations, accelerated learning, learner training, translation, portfolio assessment, reading aloud, brain gym, situational English, multiple intelligence theory, CAL, life skills, grammar, use of mother tongue, multiple choice, reading comprehension questions, dialogues, cross-curricular approaches, or CLIL, task-based learning, story-based syllabuses, video-assisted learning, pair work and group work, VAC teaching and learning styles, and finally, Web 2.0. So, an opportunity now for you. If you need, I can go back one slide, and you're writing into Word Garden which of these is unfamiliar or newish, something you've never heard of or you don't use. And in a moment, we will look at the completed Word Garden. And see what you've come up with. Remember, don't write them in the chat box. Go into the link, go into the Word Garden link, which Luca has put up for you, up above there. Somebody said it doesn't work. Maybe you can try again. Put it into your Google Chrome, and you should be able to go directly into that link there and write up which of those, any of those which are new, all of them, or anything, all of them that are new for you. Not only one, all of them, or everything that is new for you if possible. We're giving you a little bit more time to write those in if you can. Those who can't get into Word Garden, yeah, I'm looking in the chat box. I can see some people have written. Okay, so there we have the Word Garden. So now we can all see, or yeah, hopefully you can all see. Can you? Everybody's answers. The more the same answers there are, the bigger the words. So as you can see, accelerated learning is the one that seems to be the newest to everybody on here. VAC seems to be quite a new one for most people. Brain gym is quite new to many people. And then as it gets smaller and smaller, I can't see it as clearly, but Okay, so accelerated, as you know, probably coming from Latin, from you for your own language, is all the, if you remember, we were looking at neuro-linguistic programming and the Montessori and the Reggio Emilia methods, which speed up learning because they give children more choice, they give children all kinds of different possibilities, so they speed up learning. Also, the use of music and the use of the imagination, the use of choice and freedom and cooperation and hands-on learning. So that's accelerated learning. VAC is using the senses. Again, this came in with neuro-linguistic programming. So using the right side of the brain. VAC stands for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. Brain gym. Okay, I'll talk about brain gym in a minute, but that's one that might be worth you finding out a little bit about, because it's fabulous. It's not only good for language learning, but also very, very good for behavioral problems. And it's been around a long time. Lovely. Thank you all for filling that in. That gives me an idea. Multiple intelligences I can see up there as well. Yeah, a lot of us know about it, but we don't always know how to use it. Although many of these ideas are integrated in our course books. Certainly with our Macmillan course books, all of these are integrated in the course books. As I say, we approach eclectically. So you know, in our course books, you'll find there's a story, very often a video, there's pair work, there's group work, there's visual, there's auditory, there's kinesthetic, teaching and learning. There's a lot of sections now on getting children to work on what is your dominant learning style and so on. So let's just look at these from a wider perspective. Drills, as we all know, I'm not surprised it didn't come up. Very old. You probably learned about this at university. You've probably used them quite a lot. They went out of favor at one point, and they are back, and we will be looking at them later on in the third part of this session. Dictations, also very old. They also went out of favor at one point. They went out of fashion. However, they have also come back in many different ways. And what we have just done is a dictation. I just dictated something. You wrote down only a selection, i.e. the things that were new for you, and you wrote it in Word Garden. So there are now many, many, many different ways that we can do dictation, including online, which is not like the old traditional thing. So old, but back in a different way. So accelerated learning, newish. When I say newish, it's been around now for the last 20 years or so, but people are just starting to use it because of the activities which are in their course books. That's the use of lots of hands-on projects, getting children involved in hands-on project work, getting them to do web quests, getting them to draw and move and present. All of this is part of the accelerated learning movement, not like the old learning where they sat at their desks and worked alone and repeated. Learner training is still new for many teachers all around the world, actually systematically training learners how to manage their time, how to manage their schedule. For example, how to use a dictionary effectively. This was something that was kind of never addressed directly in the lesson, but now it's actually in the course books. It's part of the lesson. One of the lessons in every unit, very often in the newer course books now, involves a lesson on training the learner how to learn better. Translation. This is an old one, very old, obviously goes back to grammar translation, goes back to the 17th century and maybe even earlier, but that is also back, and we're going to have a look at how it's come back. Portfolio assessment is, again, it's not that new, but it's still new for many teachers. And nowadays, of course, we're more and more using online portfolio assessment. Reading aloud, this has been very traditionally used a lot, especially for reading. Saying, okay, today we're going to do this reading text. Okay, you, Luca, start reading. Mario, continue. And this was part of the reading lesson. Whereas now we say to people, no, that's actually not reading. That's public speaking. And so reading aloud has gone out of fashion and has stayed out of fashion unless it's being used to help learners to speak publicly, public speaking, which has become more and more important in Model United Nations. Also, when students do presentations for each other, reading aloud can actually help them a lot, but it's not anything that it doesn't help with reading, the skill of reading, that's for sure. That's why it went out. Brain Gym, if you look up Brain Gym 1970, if you Google that after the session today, you'll see there's 26 specific physical exercises, which you can get your students to do one or two of, and they each physical exercise actually develops a specific skill or part of the brain, and it's, as you can see, it's about how many years? 50 years old, and it's still waiting to be used in class. And each activity can take only 5 minutes. So, and it's another seminar, another webinar. I can certainly do that in the future, or Google it. Life skills. This is, in fact, you can say that every teacher and every parent teaches their child life skills. So it's been around forever, but now life skills are actually being put into the CEFR, and they've become part of the curriculum for all subjects, including English language teaching. Okay, situational English has always been around, and it's still kicking, it's still alive and well. It hasn't gone out with the bathwater. We still teach by presenting new language in situations. It's still very useful for learners. Multiple intelligence theory, again, it's been around, as you can see, for about 40 years. It's still newish for people, but more and more, if you look in course books, you'll see exercises, tasks which help visual learners, which help sort of people with strong musical intelligence, people with strong artistic intelligence, people with very strong bodily, physical intelligence. So we're trying to reach more learners now through different tasks, which work on those different development of those different kinds of intelligences. Everybody has the ability to use the whole span of, I think it was 7 and then it became 9 intelligences. Cal, if you'll remember, stood for computer assisted language learning, and we have never needed this more. And so we're using it a lot, and we still have a lot to learn with that. Video assisted learning is now also part of most online materials that come with course books. But again, we sometimes need to be reminded, and younger teachers need actually to learn the different methods that we use with the videos in the course books. So that's still very much an important thing. Pair work and group work, it started during the communicative approach in the 1980s. And there are still problems, and there are even greater problems now in this COVID-19 time in the classroom, where kids can't actually, because of social distancing, sit round a table and work in groups and pairs. But for those of you using Zoom or other applications, we have the possibility to do group and pair work through breakout rooms. So there's no reason why we can't do pair work or group work. We can do it by nominating, by picking two names and getting two learners online to work together while the others listen. You can get learners working in pairs or groups on WhatsApp, doing their homework together as a pair or group. You can use breakout rooms in Zoom. So there's no reason why we can't do group work or pair work, either in the classroom or online. And then story-based and task-based and cross-curricular. As I said, they're all here, and we're using them in our new course books nowadays. Those of you using any of the Macmillan or other publishers' materials, you are doing it, even if you don't know sometimes. And dialogues is there, old and kicking, still doing very well. The visual, auditory, kinesthetic, as well as olfactory, which is using smell, and gustatory, which is using the taste buds. Again, a lot of primary teaching gets kids doing visual activities, drawing, looking at pictures, playing with pictures, listening to songs, singing along, playing games, as well as smelling mystery things and tasting mystery things. And again, this is like multiple intelligences. Each child is capable of using all of these senses to help them learn better and to help them remember for much, much longer by using these five senses. And it's something that's being suggested in course books for you to use with your learners. So that's very much in fashion, and probably will stay with us, I think, for a long time. Comprehension questions seem to be going, they're still there because teachers want them there, but how useful they are, they're certainly useful for testing reading and listening, but they're not very useful, it's been discovered, for helping learners to develop effective reading and listening skills, like skimming and scanning. So comprehension questions kind of fell out of favor, became unpopular, but they've come back in different ways, which we'll look at in a minute. We've got multiple choice. This has been around forever, and again, still here, but it has been modified a little bit. We'll have a look at that. The use of the mother tongue. Now, when I say all over the place, I mean, we've got some schools saying absolutely no use of the English language in this school or in this classroom. Other schools saying, no, it's okay. They can, 50-50. We have an Italian teacher and an English teacher in the same class, working together, so 50-50. There are other classes, other schools that say, we don't mind a little bit of the mother tongue just to help sometimes, but not all the time. So when I say all over the place, we still have all these variations, but let's say the advice is little and often, or when it's necessary, to help students. And we're going to look at one way in which translation is creeping back now into course books, just as a small part of a lesson, just to show how it can be really, really useful. It's not useful, obviously, if we're constantly using the mother tongue and letting students use their mother tongue. But now and again, it can be a very, very useful tool. So we'll have a look at that. Nothing to say about grammar. It's always been with us. It's with us now. It will probably be with us forever. It never left us. And these Web 2.0 tools like Zoom, like StreamYard, which we're using today, like YouTube, like WhatsApp, all the millions of tools that now we need more than ever for online teaching, for hybrid teaching. I know some of you are teaching in hybrid systems, others all online, some of you part-time, as I said, hybrid. We have never needed these tools more, and this is something new for all of us, but is here to stay, although they change and they keep getting more and more and more varied and sophisticated. But we have a whole new menu of possibilities here. So just to finish off in the last 5 or 10 minutes, those first 2 sections were looking at old methods. Looking at old does not mean throw it out, throwing the baby out with the bathwater as well. We've seen from the quiz that old methods don't necessarily have sell-by dates. Some of them, like the grammar translation method, will change, but it doesn't mean that they will go, or they should go, out of the window. So in other words, be careful when you say, no, that's old, I'm not doing that anymore. Be careful. You may be throwing the baby out. Don't throw the baby out. Don't throw the valuable part of that out with the bathwater. Everything is still possible, which brings us to the last part of my talk, which is showing us how some of these things have evolved. So none of the things that we see nowadays are really revolutions, apart from the Web 2.0 tools. Those are, I think, revolution, definitely, but are also evolution of each other since the 1970s or the 80s. So we're going to have a quick look at drills, dialogues, translation, reading aloud, comprehension questions, and multiple choice. Those were some of the very old, which have sometimes been thrown out, which have come back in a different form. So starting with empathy, the development of this very important skill of putting yourself into somebody else's shoes, being empático. So dialogues have evolved into this new thing, and I'm going to demonstrate this with Romina. If Romina can come back online. Are you there, Romina? Now,
yes, Teresa. Okay.
Lovely. Right. So now here we have a dialogue. So any dialogue or any grammatical sentences, normally sorry, forget the dialogue bit. Think about the sort of sentences that you ask students to complete, to fill in the blanks when you're practicing or drilling orally or practicing in written word, grammatical drills. Now, how can we make this? How has this evolved? This has evolved into making it much more interactive, much more dynamic, by asking students to put themselves in a partner's position. So let's say I stop being Teresa, I become Romina, and Romina becomes Teresa. So I am Romina, and you?
And I am Teresa. And
okay. So we're working as a pair in a breakout room, or on WhatsApp, or on Skype, or any other Web 2.0 tool. And I am going to complete this drill as Romina. So today I learned that, now I'm thinking, today I learned that I was going to introduce the speaker at the beginning of this session. Now, wait, Romina. I felt a little tired first thing this morning. Now I feel excited and stimulated. Okay, so I've written this down. Let me check. Was I able to empathize correctly with Romina or not? So, okay, Romina, today you learned that you were going to present this session yourself, by yourself. Is that right?
True, completely true.
Okay. You felt tired first thing this morning. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's 80% correct.
Okay. And now you feel excited and stimulated to do this.
100% correct.
Okay. Now you do it for me.
Okay, so now I am Teresa. So today I learned that I am extremely passionate about my job because I like what I'm doing so much. I felt excited first thing this morning because I was having this presentation today. And now I feel amused because I'm doing this activity with Romina, which I love so much.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so you've filled that in for I when you're in my place. Now you're going to talk to me either face to face, or we're doing it online, so it shows it's possible. Now change the I to you, and now you're
Exactly. So
talking with me.
Teresa, today you learned that you are extremely passionate about your job and you are enjoying this so much.
Yeah, I actually learned this a
You
long
learned
time
this.
ago, but I certainly am passionate. But yeah, I learned that I'm still passionate, let's say. Yeah.
Okay. Then you felt excited first thing this morning because of this
Yeah,
presentation.
definitely. I always feel nervous and worried and tense before any presentation or lesson. Uh-huh.
Okay. And now you feel amused because you're talking to me.
Yeah. Yes, and I love you very much. Absolutely. Definitely.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
Okay, everyone. So thank you, Romina. Stay
Thank
with
you.
me. But that is, I learned, I went, when I was a child, I drank this, drank that. So we give the STEM sentences to the students. We then give them another name, someone else in the class. They have to empathize with that person, fill in the sentence as that other person, like we did with Romina now. They fill in the STEM sentences, so they're practicing their grammar, but at the same time, they're also thinking about the other person, and then they get together online or face to face and they check using you this time. So again, it's a drill, it's still grammar practice, but at the same time there's the thrill of listening to see what the other person thinks about you, and it makes a very boring grammar exercise into something which becomes much more dynamic. Okay, the second activity, again, our old friend of dialogues. this again now has developed much more, and one adaptation or evolution of this has been used in the theatre, voice production. So we have a basic dialogue. It can be longer than this. It can just be 2 lines. And basically we ask again 2 students online or in breakout rooms, so students working in pairs, to one of them is A, one of them is B. They have to read the dialogue, but according to different instructions which the teacher is going to give them. So, Romina, if we could just demonstrate for people participating, if
Absolutely.
the teacher said, okay, Romina, or decide who is A and who is B. Who do you want to be, Romina? A or B?
I would like to be B. Let's.
Okay.
You
Right.
can start with A, and I will answer.
Okay. So I'm A and you're B, and the teacher says, okay, you are 2 very bored old ladies sitting in a bus station, or even in a webinar, 2 very old bored ladies in a webinar. And A says, oh, what time does this finish?
Oh, God knows.
Okay, situation 2. You have a plane to catch and you have 1 minute to get on that plane. Have the dialogue and get on the plane. What time does this finish?
Oh my God, God knows.
And there goes the plane. Okay, situation 3. Let me think. Situation 3. You are international spies and you are passing these code messages to each other. So, what time does this finish?
God knows.
Thank you. So, and so on and so on and so on. With very young learners, you can say, do the dialogue slowly, do it quickly, do it loudly, do it, whisper it, do it under the table, do it standing up, do it while you're jumping on one leg. So with very young learners, you can do it with very physically, but you can do this with middle school students, you can do this with high school students, you can even do it with adults. Give them a situation, and get them just to read through in pairs according to the situation, according to the character that they're playing. And my favorite one of all is A, you are inside a supermarket, B, you are outside a supermarket. Have the dialogue, but don't shout because the windows are double glazed and no sound goes through. So you've got all your students mouthing and gesticulating, and it's a wonderful way to get students repeating the same dialogue over and over, but each time it's different and they absolutely love it. So that's a great evolution. This one, okay. It's now 7 o'clock, I see, but basically, if you just, I won't ask you to do this activity, but if you just look at it, these particular sentences are all ambiguous in every language. I think probably most languages. For example, I want a man who likes ties. Either we're talking about the tie, the cravat. I don't know how you say it in Italian. Romina, how do you say it? I want a man who likes ties in Italian.
You can say voglio un uomo a cui piacciono le cravatte if you translate ties in the first.
Yes. And is there another way in which we could translate this?
Well, actually, I think this is the most common sense we can translate that one.
But what about ties as in connections, commitment, attachment, emotional?
In that sense, voglio un uomo a cui piace non diciamo così, we say voglio un uomo che sia empatico, voglio un uomo che sia sociale. We don't say a cui piacciono le connessioni. It's not very so
common.
we would change the sentence in that case a little bit.
And when you throw this open to the whole class, you'll get a lot of people offering a lot of different possibilities, and they will be as amazed as you are to see how many different sometimes translations they can come up with in their own language, and they'll see that their own language is like English in that it is flexible. There is not always a one-to-one correlation, and sometimes it's just the ultimate comprehension check, just to say, okay, we've been working on this structure, or we've been working on these words. Okay, how do you say this in your language? Is there any other way? Is there any other possible meaning? And just getting them to come back, translating it into their own language is a wonderful comprehension check, but it can also be great fun. It can also be a game, and it will help them to play and very often remember the things that they've come up with. Like this one, I prefer old trainers anytime. There we can use trainers, the kind that I am, or trainers, the kind that I wear, as in Adidas, every time. Advert break there. Okay, just running through. Sometimes just taking out the spaces and asking students to put the punctuation back in order to make meaning. When they're putting the commas and the full stops and things in, they will start reading this aloud. To themselves, first of all, and then they'll start doing it louder and louder, especially if they're working in a breakout room with another student, and they'll start to make sense of it, and they'll start to read aloud and really enjoy it. And what comes out is the more we study, the more we know. The more we know, the more we forget. The more we forget, the less we know, and the less we know, the less we forget. So why study? And they can come out with this quite funny students' philosophy, but it's asking them to read aloud for a different purpose. And the purpose here is A, to work on punctuation, and B, to show how punctuation affects stress and intonation. So the more we study, the more we know. The more we know, the more we forget. So that slower and faster, the stress, the pausing, the intonation up and down. This is part of public speaking. And by asking them to put in the punctuation, they will see how the punctuation can help them to become better public speakers as well, and read things aloud, as well as having fun with making sense of a message like this. So that's a different approach to reading aloud. Comprehension questions. Have any of you tried something like this? Just have a look at these. These are comprehension questions about this session. The first one is, does the speaker think that old methods are out? Second one, how old is the speaker, and does she look her age? Now, this is unusual, and you'll see that each question is appealing to a different kind of intelligence of the multiple intelligences. So the first one is a straight left-brained logical academic question, but the second one is a very socio-emotional question. The third one again is socio-emotional. What do you think the speaker had for breakfast? So we're asking you to empathize and imagine. 4, new is often old in new clothing. Do you agree? So this is a bit more intellectual type of question. Number 5, can you remember the names of the girl and the boy in the opening dialogue? This is a quiz type of question, a memory one. What do you think their relationship was, that boy and that girl? Haha, here we go, it's socio-emotional. So give them, give the students a whole load of comprehension questions, which are sometimes called revenge questions, because they are different. They are revolutionary, some of these. Some of these are like gossipy, like the sort of latest paparazzi type of questions. And we ask students to choose which ones they want to answer. And then they decide in a pair and they ask and answer each other and then report back to the rest of the class. So we give them, and then we can later on ask them to write their own revenge questions, which are not just fact-based, logical, academic. Sometimes they can be paparazzi type questions. Sometimes they can be all kinds, focusing on visuals, or sounds or music or things that were in the lesson earlier on. So that's revenge questions. And finally, I'm very sorry, I've run a bit over time. So I'm giving you finally this multiple choice to do. And you'll see, instead of here are 3 wrong answers and 1 right one, find the right one, which is what we normally do in tests and exams, asking students to look at all these mistakes and try to find the right one. This is the other way around, giving them why not give them a multiple choice where they have 3 right answers and only 1 wrong one, and they have to find the wrong answer instead of the right one. So I hope this talk has left you all feeling 1, dedicated, 2, determined, 3, delighted, and 4, disgusted. Find the wrong answer and let me know in the chat box. And thank you all for joining, and enjoy the rest of your academic year, and be careful what you throw out of your teaching practice. Remember, there's a use for everything, and take care of all those babies in the ELT bathwater.
Thank you, Teresa. This was really, really amazing. And thank you guys for telling me that in Italian is legami. I know, I'm sorry. Sometimes I forget about my own language. So thank you very much. Just one little thing before saying goodbye, because we are running out of time. So unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. But one thing I wanted to tell you and to remind you is that on the 18th of November, there will be another webinar. And the title will be, It's Still All About the Content by Anna Hasper. So you'll find the link in the chat box with all the updates and the links. So thank you very much for being here today. And thank you, Teresa, for this. It was really funny and interesting. And so thanks a lot.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed it very, very much. I hope everyone else did too. And thanks for interacting. It's the interaction that's important. I loved it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Me too. It was great.